Why in the world are astrology houses so vital? They're so vital, in fact, that they make up about 50% of your birth chart's meaning. 50%. Crazy, right? But no worries. By the end of this video, it'll all finally make sense to you, what each astrology house means and what it means for you and others around you. Hola, my beautiful lotus flowers. Thank you so much for coming back. And for those of you who are new, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and fantasy, this is the community for you. One of the most frequently asked questions I get about astrology is about the houses. So on Instagram, I always clarify for these people what the houses mean, and they're always so relieved to find out they're really not as difficult as they originally thought. And I know that you're ready to learn about the houses as well, so let's go ahead and jump right into the information you're waiting for. What are the houses? First and foremost, before we get started, let me clarify two things about the houses so that way you're not lost in the entire video. Number one, for the sake of this video, I'm only going to be skimming over the primary details of each house's meaning and what it means for your life specifically. Since a whole video could easily be dedicated to each house, there are so much details I will not be diving into. So if I missed something that you think is very important, I really apologize, but you're always welcome to add on in the comments below. I love seeing an astrology discussion and maybe we can all learn from each other. Second is a fact about the houses that I want you to keep in mind throughout this video, so again, you aren't confused. Keep in mind that there are 12 zodiac signs and there are also 12 houses. However, they are both different. Zodiac signs determine specific personality traits and quirks that you have individually apart from everybody else. The houses talk about specific areas of your life, how you go about living your life in these certain categories. The thing that a lot of people get confused is that the houses follow the same 1 through 12 organization that the zodiac signs do. For example, the first house is also ruled by the zodiac sign Aries, and so they carry similar characteristics. But again, the zodiac sign Aries is going to specify a person and their personality, whereas the house itself is going to signify an area of life. With that in mind, you may notice if you calculate your own birth chart, and I will have a couple links below of great websites to calculate your own birth chart to help you better follow this video or learn from this video. So if you calculate your own, you might notice that if you look at my birth chart, you'll notice that your houses are in completely different areas than mine. And that's because unlike the zodiac constellations, they move. So the zodiac constellations are in a fixed position in the sky all the time. But the planets and us and the Earth's moon, we all move through the zodiac constellations. The houses, however, move because they're actually attached to the Earth's axis rotation. The very first house in astrology is named the House of Self. It's ruled by the zodiac sign Aries and by the planet Mars. So this house is actually the one that determines our ascendant sign, also known as our rising sign. And if you're not aware of what that is, be sure you watch this video. The card will be right here and the link will be in the description because I give a great overall summary of what each type of sign means in your zodiac chart. But since the first house determines your ascendant sign, aka your rising sign, it basically determines you as an individual and how you come off to everybody around you. So it can determine anything from the way you dress, the way you tend to interact with others, basically whatever people's first impression of you is carried by the House of Self. Whether you like to dress in dark clothes, whether you like to dress glamorously, all of those types of surface traits are going to be reflected in your House of Self and the zodiac sign and planet that are also part of that house. The second house that we have is named the House of Possessions. And this house is ruled by the planet Venus and the zodiac sign Taurus. Although this house does represent general overall materialism and our attraction towards materialistic things in life, it also determines what we value, who we value, why we value it, so on and so forth. So the things that we value having in our life on top of material abundance is determined by the placement of our House of Possessions. Overall, the house speaks to our level of material fulfillment personally, whether you're somebody who really places a lot of importance on the success of material wealth or on the success of gaining material wealth through spiritual means, artistic means, so on and so forth. The third house in the zodiac is the house of communication, also ruled by the planet Mercury and the zodiac sign Gemini. The primary aspect of life that this house influences is the way that you think and analyze situations and how that translates into your communication with other people. Whether you tend to be awkward speaking to others, whether you tend to be very overpowering, whether you tend to be shy, this can all be translated into your third house and where it's placed in your chart. The fourth house is the house of family and home, which is ruled by the Earth's moon and the zodiac sign Cancer. This governs our own emotional basis for fulfillment and how our upbringing influenced that greatly. The effect of the fourth house can also be felt in the way that you imagine your future domestic life or how you upkeep your current domestic life as well. That's where the home part of the name comes in. So once you finally decide to settle down, do you want to have a home that's just your own? Do you tend to have certain types of decorations that you prefer versus somebody else's preferences? Things like that. The fifth house that we have is the house of pleasure, which is ruled by the sun and by the zodiac sign Leo. So the placement of this house in our chart influences what we find fun in order to gain personal fulfillment. Whether you like spending time in nature, whether you like shopping, sports, sex, things like that. Whatever you do in your life to create happiness and fun. Before we continue, leave a comment below if you find a certain house more interesting than the others and what you've learned so far. Also be sure that you like if you love this video so far, and be sure you subscribe so you don't forget, and hit the bell. That way you know when I release new astrology videos every Tuesday and Friday. The sixth house that we have is the house of health, which is ruled by the planet Mercury as well, and it is governed by Virgo, the zodiac sign. This house determines basically our physical, mental, and spiritual health overall in our lives and how we're going to deal with that. Depending on the placement, if you have a good placement of this house, that means that you'll be well balanced in all three categories. But if you have a negative placement, you may struggle in either one of those categories or all three of them in life. The seventh house that we have is deemed the house of partnerships, and this is ruled by the planet Venus as well and by the zodiac sign Libra. The first thing that the house of partnerships will really influence in your life is what you seek in your romantic partnerships and how that will play out. For example, what you value, whether it is monetary success in your partner, if you value sexual attraction, laughter, things like that will all be determined depending on your placement of this house. The second thing that'll be strongly determined by this placement are your business partnerships as well. And it may sound odd, but actually you kind of look for the same type of values in a business partnership that you would in a romantic partnership, just because that this house basically just determines all areas of intimacy with other people in your life that you're going to be close to. So you may value someone who has the same type of mindset as you in romance and in business, so on and so forth. So this house is going to greatly determine those relationships and the way that they play out in your life. The eighth house we have is deemed the house of sex, and it is actually ruled by the planet Pluto, which I know is no longer considered a planet, but in astrology it is because of its heavy influence. And it's also ruled by the zodiac sign Scorpio. So because of this planet and zodiac sign combination ruling this house, it can be considered the darkest house in the zodiac, which is kind of its nickname because of that. So depending on the placement of this house, this is where you'll find your deepest, darkest desires, your darkest secrets, your taboos, your limitations, what challenges you face. All of that will be greatly influenced by this house. The two biggest areas of our lives that are heavily influenced by this house placement are sex and death. So death, for example, can also represent transformation in your life. It can represent the way that you deal with death in your life and the events that happen in your life regarding death and the way that you deal with them. But on top of that, it also kind of translates into more of a mystical symbolism, like reformation, reincarnation, transformation, and we can actually learn a lot from the eighth house because it talks about those limitations and those deep desires and those things that we're trying to break free from. So the way that you deal with death and rebirth is going to be greatly signified by this house, and you can learn a lot from it if you pay attention to it. And as for sex, so sex in the placement of this house determines it in almost a mystical type of way. This house views sex as a mystical joining of two souls rather than just a physical act between two physical bodies. So the way that this house is placed in your chart is greatly going to influence your experience with sex and how you view it as well. Then additionally, the eighth house is commonly known to symbolize exactly how you're going to deal with shared finances in your lives too, whether it's your partner's finances and family, friends, so on and so forth. Our ninth house is the house of philosophy, and this is ruled by the planet Jupiter and the zodiac sign Sagittarius. So the placement of this house is going to greatly influence the way that you go about expanding your spiritual horizons and your higher education. So whether you're somebody who embraces Christianity, whether you're someone who embraces Buddhism, whether you're an atheist, all of that type of stuff is determined by the placement of this house in your chart. And it also determines, again, education. So whether you like to obtain education by traveling or by getting a degree, all of that can go under this house. The 10th house we have is also known as the house of social status. This is ruled by the planet Saturn and the zodiac sign Capricorn. This house may greatly influence the career path of an individual. It has the most impact out of all the houses on your career and where you may end up later on in life. However, a common misconception is that this house is telling you that you should be in the career you're doing now, but that may not be true because this house focuses on the career you should be doing based on your true love and passion for something. It's not focused on a career that you should be doing out of obligation or, because you have to, or responsibility or whatever. It gets down to the nitty-gritty of what you truly love and where you should look in life for the most success and happiness as far as your career and public status goes. Like a fun fact to kind of give you a better example of that is a lot of celebrities tend to have their 10th house in Leo, and that's kind of because Leo with the 10th house in it is known to signify that you're going to have a very public status, you're going to be well known by many other people, you like to be center stage in life, and how better to be center stage to a bunch of people than to be some type of celebrity or public figure. Furthermore, because house is connected to social status, it greatly influences the way that groups of others perceive us. Say they're judging you on social media or people you work with. That's going to be greatly governed by this house, and because of that, it's also said to be greatly connected to the idea of karma as well. So the image and the information and what you put out there to others may come back to you as well. The 11th house is also called the house of friendships, and this is ruled by the planet Uranus, with the zodiac sign Aquarius ruling it as well. And this is going to be kind of an extension of the previous house, the house of social status, and it's going to extend into our personal social life and our business social life as well. So this house's placement in your chart is going to influence the way that you interact with your social life, how you work on teams and organizations. Rather than focusing just on our career and worldly success, which the previous house kind of focuses on, this house encourages the way that you nourish those relationships and further expand those relationships in your life. Then we have the 12th house, which is also deemed the house of the subconscious. So this house is ruled by the planet Neptune and the zodiac sign Pisces, and it governs over everything mystical, whether you're talking about the spiritual realm, tarot, fortune telling, psychics, everything like that is governed by this house placement, and depending on where it's at in your chart will determine how you connect to the quote-unquote spiritual mystical realm. It's also heavily considered the house that governs somebody's karma in their life as well. Because of this, a lot of people are actually kind of scared to know their 12th house placement. A lot of people kind of think it's kind of taboo, but actually it's very important to pay attention to your 12th house placement, because kind of like the 8th house, the house of sex, that house tells you your deepest limitations and things you're trying to break free from, and kind of represents rebirth, right? So the 12th house is similar in that sense, except it's a subconscious mind, so it goes even deeper. So these are habits and things that we think subconsciously that we don't know about, and it can really if we pay attention to it, it can really transform us spiritually, mentally, and physically if we decide to learn from it rather than run away from the subconscious mind. If this video has been helpful to you, be sure that you go ahead and click the link in the description, but most importantly, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell